What if episode 9 were good? Like, really good? What if, just like Belated Media once did for the prequels, we made a bunch of tweaks and took a deep dive into episode 9 to see what changes we would make in an attempt to make the film better? In this case, I will basically be rewriting this film from start to finish, so I do want to mention that I'm just doing this for fun. While I may not have liked episode 9, I'm certainly not saying that I would have liked this more, because I'm just some guy. I'm not a script writer, I'm just a Star Wars fan who basically wants to talk about a possible story that could have happened for episode 9 that I think maybe with some development could have been alright. But yes, to reiterate, I'm just here for a bit of fun. Now, my first huge change is going to be that the title is being slashed. Rise of Skywalker is a decent title, but for what I'm going for in my version of the story, it just doesn't fit. For me, the focus of this story will be the Force, more so than the Skywalker family. The idea being that the Skywalker family aren't actually the reason all of this has happened. They aren't the important part of the universe. The Force is. Without the Force, the Skywalkers would really be nobodies, just a slave kid and later a farmer boy. So the title for my version of this film will be The Rise of the Force, or Rise of the Force, I guess makes a bit more sense. It's not the best title, but it's, just a representation of how I'm trying to change the themes of this last film. The crawl is going to establish where the major players are at right now. Kylo Ren is still the leader of the First Order, and he rules with an iron fist. The First Order have pretty much taken over the whole galaxy, to the point where I would say they're more powerful than the Empire at this point. Kylo Ren is also seen as a mass object of fear. What happened on Crate did hurt his reputation a little bit, but he's managed to keep the talk of that a bit down. This is almost a callback to real history, where leaders of fascist governments have attempted to censor things that have happened to them to try and keep that control. The Resistance basically have lost at this point. We're almost seeing the aftermath of a version of the original trilogy where the Empire won. We're almost seeing that really dark alternate story where basically the bad guys won. Rey isn't feeling that confident. She's used Luke Skywalker's Kyber Crystal to create a new dual-bladed lightsaber, but while she's an okay combatant and clearly still has that power in the Force that she had in the last movies, she just doesn't feel that she's confidently able to call herself a Jedi. Luke is gone, and Luke was the last Jedi, so how can Rey call herself a Jedi if there's no one to train her? She's clearly a Force user, but she doesn't know exactly who she is, which is a major thing for Rey. In all of these films, she's never known exactly who she is, and now she doesn't even have a title. She's Rey from nowhere, she's no one, and now she's not even a Jedi. Clips of Carrie Fisher will be used in the start of the film the same way they used them in The Rise of Skywalker, but Leia's character will pass away, unfortunately. This is obviously due to the circumstances of Carrie Fisher's untimely death. However, it also makes sense for the story. It really thrusts our characters into these leadership positions. It's like a mother bird pushing her baby bird out of the nest. It makes sure that Poe now has to be ready for leadership, if he feels it or not. Same goes for Finn and Rey. They no longer have that parenthood figure, and everyone in the Resistance is looking to them, and they don't really know what to say. So basically, we're going to see the rebels all on their base, which will be on Agent Kloss, because why not? And they're beaten. They're broken. I feel that, obviously, with a bit of coordination, The Last Jedi would have ended on a bit more of a somber note. It definitely had that hopeful note, but this will be a dark start to the film. The Resistance have lost, and then when we cut to Coruscant, which is now where the First Order are using as, I guess, their capital, we're going to see how much oppression there really is. This is sort of taking from the Colin Trevorrow script, and I'm going to take a couple of things from that script, because I thought that had a couple of really good ideas, and Coruscant is one of them. If you want to tie together all three trilogies, simply bringing back the villain from the other two trilogies isn't the best way about it. Palpatine will not be in my version. But a great way to do it would be to use a setting that was basically the main setting for all three of those first films. It's in the same way that the prequels brought back Tatooine. Tatooine could have been seen as the main planet of the original trilogy, so the prequels brought it back to tie the two trilogies together. But that's not what this film did. I mean, I guess Rise of Skywalker sort of had the weird Tatooine scene at the end, but that doesn't count. It's not a main location, and Coruscant is definitely going to be a main location in this version of the film, because for many of you who look into Star Wars lore, you'll know what's underneath the Jedi Temple, but I'll talk about that later. On Coruscant, we will see a huge ship which is basically shadowing the whole city. You'll see it looming over everyone. This is going to be a dark and very quiet version of Coruscant. We're not going to see many cars flying around like we had in the prequel trilogy. This is a dark setting. The upper levels are almost going to seem like the underworld in a way. They're going to be really shady, and there's going to be stormtroopers everywhere. On top of this, Kylo Ren has now constructed himself a new mask, and there is a reason in this version of the film as to why he does that. Quite simply, Kylo Ren wants to make sure he is a symbol of fear, and not seeing someone's face is a huge contributor to that. As well as this, Kylo Ren's confidence as a dark side Force user is rising, which is directly going to contrast Rey's confidence falling. Kylo Ren is about to enter his prime, and he's not going to stop. Things aren't going to end well for Kylo Ren in this movie. He's fallen into the dark path, the same way Anakin did. Now, in this version of the script, I am going to have a bit of Kylo Ren's redemption, but he's going to still have consequences for his actions. I think in the original film, yes, he died, but that's not enough consequence, and you're going to see how I handle his consequences later on. I can tell there's going to be a long video, but there's going to be a lot of good stuff here. We're going to see Hux, who has been basically sidelined, which is similar to the original film. He's been sidelined because really, Kylo Ren and Hux were in competition through both films, and now Kylo Ren has won said competition. So Hux has been put way down. He's simply the commander of one Star Destroyer, and that's it. We're going to go back to the Resistance and see heaps of people who are basically ready to leave the war, because what the First Order have done is they've placed the whole galaxy on a communications lockdown. How can they contact their allies if they're not even sure their allies are out there to start, and also they can't contact anyone? This idea is again being taken from the Colin Trevorrow script, but what the main three characters will want to do is go to steal a massive Star Destroyer that has the communications array on it that could contact others in the galaxy. So the whole Resistance gears up. And remember, this is all in the first 20 minutes of the film. We're not going to be wasting a lot of time here. We're not going to have MacGuffins. We're not going to have all these things that the original film had. It's pretty straight and to the point. These guys need to get their message out to somebody. But the question arises, what do they say? I mean, in the last film, in The Last Jedi, they tried to contact their allies and used Leia's code herself, but that didn't work. If Leia's call to help isn't going to work, then what can they say to rally people to the cause and rally their existing allies? And that's where Luke Skywalker plays a part. You see, in the last film, Luke Skywalker humiliated the leader of the First Order and seemingly took on the entire First Order army. So that's the word they're going to get out. They're going to use the story of Luke Skywalker to push forward what's going on. They're going to try and recruit people using Luke Skywalker's message and using his voice. But Luke's dead, and the word of that would get out pretty quickly. So what can they do to reignite that hope in the galaxy? Sure, they can tell the story of Luke Skywalker, but with Luke being gone, who's going to pick up that torch? The eyes directly go to Rey, and Rey doesn't know what to say. She doesn't feel like a Jedi. She doesn't feel like she'll ever be a Jedi. And she certainly doesn't feel like she's Luke Skywalker's successor. So she turns them down. But they're still going to go ahead and use Luke Skywalker's legend and use his story to push the cause forward. And that's pretty much what the first act will comprise of. They're going to travel to find the ship, they're going to infiltrate the ship, they're going to steal the ship, action, blast, blast, boom, boom, bunch of resistance fighters, and they're going to bring the ship back to their base and disable the trackers. They've now got the ship. Heading into Act 2, they make their message. They try and tell the galaxy about what happened with Luke, and they have a holo recording of Luke and Kylo Ren fighting. And this enrages Kylo Ren, because you can see him without his mask, and you see him losing his cool. You see, Kylo Ren is trying to build himself as this very feared figure that never breaks, never twitches, isn't affected by others. Almost like Darth Vader, this tall being that could just stare you down and slaughter you, basically. But now, Kylo Ren just looks like a child, and this, more than anything, makes him so angry. And because Kylo Ren uses his emotions way too much, and that's something we've seen Kylo Ren do constantly, he decides to open fire on the citizens of Coruscant. You may be wondering, why the hell would he do that? And the answer's simple: more fear. If the people are suddenly ridiculing Kylo Ren, and then he opens fire on innocents in a city, then they're gonna fear ridiculing Kylo Ren. And suddenly, the name Luke Skywalker just makes people fearful. They're worried that if they support him, then they're gonna face the same fate. And over the second act, the Resistance are starting to notice this. As they go to different planets to attempt to liberate them, they just tell them to go away. Because the First Order is too strong. The First Order will basically punish them for the Resistance's actions. The Resistance has grown a bit, by the way. Some people have heard their message and joined the cause, but definitely not enough to take on the First Order. However, at this point in the story, Kylo Ren and Rey have what seems to be another connected Force vision. But both of them know that neither of them initiated it. They look to the side and they both see something. They can't make it out, but they hear whispers, dark whispers, and what seems to be, to the viewers at least, a Sith temple. The whispers are getting louder. We hear the whispers say the words power over and over again. Rey looks at Kylo. Kylo is focused completely on this temple. And then the vision ends. But Kylo and Rey can still see each other. They look at each other, and then the vision completely ends, and they can no longer see each other. Now we've got two conflicting ideas between these two. Rey needs to go to that Sith temple and destroy whatever power's inside, and Kylo Ren needs to seize it. They both need to get to that temple, but where the hell would it be? Rey goes to Poe and Finn and says that she needs to go. That if she doesn't, Kylo Ren could become so powerful that he alone could take on the whole Resistance. She doesn't know what this thing is. So Poe, Finn, and Chewie say they're all going to go with her. And they travel, and they don't really know where they're going. They're out of the atmosphere and they're about to enter hyperspace. Finn asks Rey where are they going, and Rey says she doesn't know. They're all pretty confused. But then what Rey does is she uses the Force to guide the hyperdrive, and they enter hyperspace. Poe asks where they're going now, and Rey still doesn't know, but the Force will guide them. Meanwhile, Kylo Ren is pretty frantic. He's asking every researcher he's got to try and find any Sith temples that are around, try and find if there's any archive of a Sith temple. None are found. Kylo doesn't know what to do, because you see, Kylo can't just center himself and look the same way a Jedi could. But then he remembers Rey is going to go there. He tells the First Order to scan for the Falcon, but not to destroy it. Instead, he wants it tracked. Wherever Rey is going, he will find the power he needs. Rey will lead him there. However, Rey is closer than Kylo thinks, because as the Falcon comes out of hyperspace, they immediately hit Coruscant. The blockade around Coruscant is the biggest we've ever seen in pretty much all of Star Wars. And immediately they're being asked for their call sign, they're being asked for some sort of identification. Poe says to swing the ship around, they need to get out of there immediately, but the hyperdrive is cooling down still. But Rey says stop. She goes over the comlink, and through the comlink uses a Jedi mind trick. Almost the same way that Vader would use Force choke through the screen, Rey is using a mind trick through the communicator. Somehow it works, and they fly past the masses of ships. Poe says that this fleet alone is the biggest he's ever seen. One blockade is bigger than this pilot has ever seen, and that scares him. They decide it's too dangerous to fly over the city, seeing how many surveillance ships there are, and they find a place to land. They're now on foot, and there are stormtroopers everywhere. However, there are also spies, and they're watching them. And then they report to Kylo Ren that they're on Coruscant, and Kylo Ren is definitely shocked. He goes to his researchers, and they tell him that according to some ancient myths, there is a Sith temple underneath the Jedi Temple of Coruscant. Kylo Ren laughs at the ignorance of the Jedi, and tells his staff to get his ship immediately. Kylo Ren takes his ship to the lower levels of Coruscant. Meanwhile, it's taking the Resistance a little while to get there, and as they get there, Kylo Ren is already deep inside. Poe, Finn, and Chewie stay outside, and Rey jumps in. Kylo is exploring this temple, trying to get to its core. He feels the dark side around him, and he feels more powerful. Rey, on the other hand, feels weaker and weaker by the second. Kylo feels himself getting closer and closer to what he's looking for, until he finds it. In the middle of the temple, he finds a Sith holocron. The room looks similar to where Ahsoka and Vader dueled in Star Wars Rebels. He grabs the holocron, and he hears the voice. He opens it, and then immediately it glows, and something comes out of it and seems to absorb into him. This is when Rey arrives. She runs and sees the masked Kylo holding the Sith holocron. He looks straight at her, and they have this very strange look. Rey is shocked and devastated that she didn't make it in time, and Kylo just blankly stares at her, with his mask just looking. Rey shouts out his name, Ben. Kylo does not answer. At this point, Ben feels dead. Kylo takes off his mask, and Rey sees the almost destroyed face of Ben Solo. It seems that the Sith energy that he just absorbed has accelerated the corruption process. His eyes are bright yellow, and you see the corruption completely take over his face. Kylo coldly says, Ben Solo is dead, and suddenly fires Force lightning directly at Rey. Not expecting it, Rey gets hit and flies backwards. As she struggles to stand, she turns on her saber, her dual blades glowing against the red. Kylo turns on his saber and they begin to duel. However, it's very clear that Kylo Ren is very easily outmatching Rey. Kylo Ren is completely overpowering her both in saber skill and force ability. This newfound power from the holocron is definitely helping him in the fight, but it's clear that he's also got a bit more skill and a lot more confidence. The battle continues, but Rey is knocked back. Kylo Ren completely destroys her saber with one stroke. On the floor, Rey sees her completely destroyed saber staff with just the crystal sitting on the floor. She uses the Force to pull the crystal towards her and she runs. Kylo slowly walks to chase her. His newfound confidence and power has just made him very sure that next time they meet, he'll kill her. He doesn't even need to do it now. He contacts the First Order, and he tells them to destroy the Falcon next time they see it. He doesn't have to kill Rey anymore. He doesn't care. Kylo Ren's power is so high right now that everything seems below him, even defeating Rey. Rey makes it back to the ship with Poe, Finn, and Chewie, and they very narrowly escape after a big space battle, and they have to use hyperspace skipping to get out of there since the tires can track them through hyperspace. Rey, like her saber, is completely shattered. When they get back to the base, Rey says nothing to no one. Everyone really feels lost now. They may have the communication ship, and they are still able to use it, still, contacting other parts of the galaxy, but it's not seeming to work. It's pretty clear now to the rest of the galaxy that Luke Skywalker is dead, and that means that the message that Luke humiliated Kylo doesn't really matter anymore, because I guess Kylo got the last laugh in the end, since Luke Skywalker's no longer around. The galaxy is just as in fear as they were at the start of the film. The Resistance really has accomplished nothing. Rey is just sitting. She doesn't know what to do. At this point, she's no Jedi, and now she can't defeat Kylo. She has now lost the war, whereas before it was just the Resistance. Now she's lost the war too. And that brings us to the end of Act 2 of this story, as well as the end of the first part of this video. Originally I was going to do this as a big 40-minute video, that's what I had recorded, but I thought it was better just to release it as 2 parts, simply because the second part isn't done yet. I think it will probably come out a week after this video comes out, maybe a tiny bit longer. These do take quite a while. But either way, I hope you have enjoyed the story so far. I hope you're looking forward to the next part. If you are, then please do leave me as many comments as you want. If you've got alterations to this story, or even the Rise of Skywalker, then please leave them in the comments. I want to hear as much feedback from you guys as possible. I, more so than anything, want to start a bit of a conversation about just some potential hypothetical stories. I think it's fun to talk about what could have been, talk about what you would have done. So please do leave some comments down below, and please consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great day.